Simon's Universal Music. This is pretty surreal today because I'm here with my good friend Ollie Shaw, and we've met each other, we know each other, and we've known each other for a long time. So, Ollie, we've made it. Here we are. It's nice to see you.
Good to see you, mate. Thank you very much.
First thing I'm going to say to you, obviously you brought out the new single recently, which is 2 on 2, right? 2 and 2?
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about that.
Well, it's the first single from the up-and-coming third album, so my third album. I released the first one looking at about 4.5 years ago now. Second album was released during the pandemic, so it was like fucking perfect timing, great. But it wasn't like a walk in the park, happiest of albums anyway, so it actually suited that period. And a few people were saying that was their album of lockdown, so that was a big compliment to me. But the new single is cool. It's a funny thing because you often get this in albums that are in quick succession. You know how you like the Manics, right?
Yeah.
There's so many examples, but from REM to the Manics to even Radiohead, that they're stellar albums, the albums that you might associate them with. Let's say with the Manics, in complete contrast, there was the Holy Bible to Everything Must Go was the next album, and they lost a band member. You know, Richie Edwards went missing or passed away. It was all very sad.
Yeah.
And they thought we were going to split up. But there were about 2 or 3 songs. There's 2 or 3 songs written by Richie Edwards. Sorry, this is a slightly tenuous link to my stuff.
Right.
Without comparing it too much. But just, I was thinking about it today. There's a couple of albums on everything, a couple of songs on Everything That Was Going. A, are written by Richie Edwards, but B, in my humble opinion, could have been on the Holy Bible. Same with REM, with Automatic to the People, which is the big one. But the previous album to that, there was a couple of tracks on that album. You know, it's coinciding with that because it was within a 3-year period or less, couple of year period.
Yeah.
Same with the Bends and OK Computers, a similar thing. With Kid A, it was quite a different step. With me, this album is quite a different step, actually. It's quite different sounding. However, this track, 2 and 2, very much, to cut the long story short, I think could have been on my last album, actually.
Well, I'll tell you.
Not much of a difference. It was written around that period. I mean, for certainly. And it was recorded, not song. In between, I had another album ready to go. And the block of that album is going to be released. But there is a few weird and wonderful, wild things going on in the new album. This track, I liked it because it's kind of got this breathability. It's kind of got an eeriness to it that I quite liked. Yeah.
I think with all of what I listened to from you, it might be the best recorded. It might have the best kind of sound to it, but to me, it could probably be one of your best songs. You know.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, thank you very much, mate.
Because
nice to hear that, but yeah.
Yeah, I've listened to it from when you sent it to us, right? And I've listened to it, and it's a better kind of sound, you know. It's the way that you must have recorded it. Did you record it with Paul?
There's that as well. When you were I did. And the new albums with Paul Piccolo as well. And I know you're familiar with his work. You like, because you've been going now, Paul, and I'm familiar. I was becoming friends with him and working with him. We have a working relationship. It's very good friendship as well, externally to that. But I was a fan of, it's like he produced, I think 3 or 4 of Idlewild's albums, and he's worked with lots of people that I liked over the years. I was quite impressed.
Yeah, you've got to be happy with it. You've got to be happy about that. You've got to be happy about that, because having someone like that in your corner, let's say, and on your side, to have that friendship and the connection with someone who's been in the business a long time, who knows what they're doing, and it's pretty screwed on with sounds that we both love, for the bands that we both idolize and love, let's say, he whatever you sort of say to him, or the records that you want to try and soak in, or sound, he's pretty much going to be clued up on it.
Exactly. No, absolutely. Also, my compliment to Paul always. Well, there's lots of compliments to him, but I always say with Tippler, I have a band who are my best mates, and I love them to bits. But songs are kind of set in stone before that they start playing on them, and they add weird and wonderful things, and they add great stuff, and it's all stuff that I like. But with Paul, I don't have a writing partner, so sometimes I'll just go in with an acoustic track, and it's like demoing it, and there's only me that's ever heard it. So there's a nice contrast in, not that he says, "Oh no, that's not going to work" or whatever, but even the length. There was on this newer album, because I had a bit more time on it. The intros, they was as simple as that, but actually it's quite important, right? It's stuff that I don't think about. The intros to some of the songs were a bit too long, and it's a bit boring. You know, there's only so much time. If you're thinking of doing it for a single, well, single and album stuff different, but you don't want to hear. It's like you and I both love Oasis, right? Certainly when we were kids. And it's like, what is it? Be Here Now, third album.
Yeah.
It's almost too. I love that album. It's actually don't get me started on it. I'll be here an hour talking about that alone. It's almost my favourite album.
Yeah.
Pure fact, I was probably about 12 when it came out. But there's lots and lots of stuff going on. There's like 5 layers of every guitar that Noel's done. There's long intros. There's long endings. Whereas I didn't want this album to be like that. Sometimes a third album can be like that. If you get a bit carried away, you get so comfortable. But I like working under the guidelines that there's an uncomfortability. I like the fact that I don't always know what I'm doing. And not that I leave it to Paul, but this album I'm a bit more clued up. I think vocally, musicians are, I keep saying this recently, but not all musicians might be conscious of it, but certainly with me and lots of musicians that I've admired, I've heard have said that. You're looking for a breathability, and it's like a comfortability. You know, it's almost like as long as you don't get too into yourself or too introverted, you're looking for this kind of that let the music breathe as much as, you know, because there's you can still have punky elements, but there's that element of that. Going back to those 2 albums in concession, the Holy Bible and Everything Must Go. And James Dean Bradfield once said that there's this breathability, and I heard him say this years ago, and I thought, oh, what does that mean? But I know very much what it means now. It's that you don't have to storm through each song. You don't have to try and replicate how it sounds live, you know, because it could be 10 times quicker live, and the audience might love it. But you can be comfortable in your own boots and just take a step back from it and just let the song breathe, basically. And this new album, I think I'm pretty confident it does that in lots of it, and I'm quite proud of it, actually. Yeah, I'm listening back. It's being mixed. It's almost finished, actually. It's in the mixing process, but it's a few more tracks. It'll probably be there.
Yeah, I mean, with all of this and the subject that we're talking about, and like with songwriting and that, and with how long that you've been doing it now, within yourself, do you feel that you're getting better as a songwriter? Do you think that your songs are getting better and your playing's getting better and your style?
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. I guess. But yeah, I guess I am, actually. I think it's like being a carpenter, I guess, or it's like any job. You could be you know, it's almost it's like being a chef. I've known I know you've had experience in that.
I still am, man.
I'm a better cook now. I'm a bit older. It's like that, being relaxed. You know how you want to rush, or you have to rush through everything. You know, I don't know. I don't know what analogy I could use. I'm full of analogies. You might start with poaching an egg perfectly, and you'll do it for weeks and weeks and weeks on end, and then you'll be doing it with your eyes closed within about 6 months. And there's so many elements to songwriting that now, I guess, all the compounds that I learned in songwriting, it does become easier, I think. But that's age, and that's everything. You know, 10 years ago, you know what it's like. You get all these rising, slightly tenuously again, but all the rising in I should have gone about this, but all the rising in costs at the minute. You know, if that happened to me 10 years ago, I'd be like, oh, fuck, what am I going to do? You know, now it's like, oh, it's another bill. Yeah, that's raising. It's the new norm, I guess. It's just not very good and a pain in the backside, you know. But yeah, I think it's like you do get better. You get more comfortable, is what I'm trying to say, and you get more relaxed doing it. You become more centered doing it, and it's still always me. And I'm always, whatever I write, there's always an element of me. However weird and abstract it is, it's always just written on an acoustic guitar, and it's just me. Well, me that's written it, and that's the studio where this you from writing a song to going in the studio. Now I have some little bit of experience.
Yeah.
The song is king, and you know it might. There's lots of things you can do to it, but essentially, if the song's no good, then you know you know from demoing stuff now that you know the premise of how it's going to sound. But yeah, to answer your question, sorry, more directly, yeah, I do think I've gotten better actually.
Well, I think the last two singles have proved the point. I think the last two singles have proved it. You know.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting when obviously people hear the rest of it, because
I'm looking forward to. There's people that I'm you know, when you're a songwriter as well, a young dude at the single launch, nice guy actually, yeah, maybe like 20 years old, and he said, "How do you release stuff and not feel not conscious, really conscious of it, but not feel nervous about it, or you feel like you feel of anxiety?" You always get little bits of that, but again, I think as a songwriter, when it's like, that's a little bit like being a chef. I know, because my ex was a chef, and I just know a little bit about it. It's like when you've presented your best meal, really from the kitchen, you've done your bit. And that's like me, from my bedroom and to the recording studio with my song. I've done my part as a songwriter. When you release it, it's up for all sorts of interpretation. You know, someone might like elements of it, someone might like all of it, someone might reference it to someone else. It might evoke a memory or something. That's the artsy side to it, the simple art side in songwriting, I guess, is the interpretation on the other end. I feel like that kills the nerves for me. Otherwise, I'd never release anything, because I think, well, I've done my part like a postman. I've delivered this letter.
Yeah.
That sometimes I've been working on for years. You know, I've done on to the next song, basically. That's how I work. That was my advice. That advice I imparted to this random nice young bloke.
Yeah. So have you got a title for this new album yet?
Yeah, have. You can have an exclusive on it. I'm telling people, but yeah, it's called A Beginner's Guide to Dystopia.
Right, okay.
The new album.
Right,
so nice happy title. That was the running title for ages, and it's stuck. It's this, like, I don't know, it's like, I guess it's like naming a kid. You know, it suits this album. You know, I had the idea for the album name, and actually 18 months down the line, now it's finished in the finishing process. Actually, it does suit this album. I'm going to call it that. There's a song, and I'm into title tracks. So each album so far, The Last English Cowboys was a song. I called the album that. Same with The Darker Plains. It's the like the swan song somewhere in the middle of the album. And this one, it's similar. I don't know where the track's going to be placed yet. I'm doing track listings.
Right, okay.
But there's a song called The Beginner's Guide to Dystopia, and that is the album. Yeah.
Right, okay. And how many tracks?
Exclusive, Simon.
Yeah. That's really excellent. Mate, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Absolutely. How many tracks on the album?
That's a good question. So there's 14 tracks knocking about.
Right.
But I think the previous albums were 2 albums of 10, and it was similar, but I had about 14, 15 tracks that might never be heard again, you know, in the vault, let's say, with me and Paul Tippler.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware. I think 13 on the first, 14 on the second, and then this one there's about 14, but I'm going to release definitely 11, just to do an odd number on the third album. But there might be 12 as well.
Right, okay. Cool.
You have to think as well, because I want to release it on vinyl. And sorry to keep interrupting. Please cut me off if you think I'm bloody going on too much.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
You know what? I'm like a box. But if you have to think of running order for vinyl, basically, because it shouldn't be more than about 45 minutes, 48 minutes, something. It's very precise. And I've got to be a bit careful. I don't want to add like some long greatest hits album. So got to flow nicely. So it's thereabouts. It's under about 40 minutes, I think, so far. But it should be all right.
And how are you going to go about selling it? What's the plan for when it's out?
Oh, similar to the last two. I'm gonna release it on digitally. I'll probably release one more single, by the way.
Right, okay,
I don't want to
good.
irritate people, but I'm going to release a new video for this new single, which is on the way within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Then there'll be another release, and I don't know if I'm going to have a launch party. I'll see if I've got the energy.
Yeah.
And then I'm definitely going to have an album launch party. So hopefully, if I can do it, get my arse into gig quick enough, I'll release the new video. Then, in fairly quick succession, because it's ready, another single, just as a bit of even more of a reference to the new album.
Yeah.
Old school. It's like when we were kids, I guess, when people actually used to release stuff. They used to release one and then the album, but sometimes two.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I released one more and then the album, or in close succession, fairly quick succession. And then I'm going to release it digitally, and then hopefully release it on vinyl again. Fingers crossed.
Right.
I'm finding though, I mean, my music is a niche of a niche. You're very complimentary about it. But I'm quite aware of that. I'm aware of myself as a songwriter. I only write for me. I know my style, but you can only write for yourself. I can't. I'm at a stage in my life I can't write to make sure the bass line sounds like something that's popular and make sure. I just want it to sound good, basically.
Yeah.
And of note and be sustainable. Whereas, music in physical form, CDs made a bit of a comeback, or they are. Cassettes have.
Yeah.
Vinyls did or have still a bit. Still niche of a niche. I sell a few a month, but it's like anything in physical format is hard. I was like, who the hell has got a cassette player, for Christ's sake?
They said you know what? I was thinking about this today.
You got one?
Yeah, I am. Really? And the only reason why is because my old CD player that I bought many moons ago, right? It's got like your CD player. Yeah. It's got the fucking cassette player on top, right? And you know what? I've never used it. I've never bought a cassette. Now they're like everyone's buying them. Yeah, that's great. But I've never used it.
I was the opposite. So I had a JVC when I was about 12, probably. I had a JVC. I got it for Christmas. I felt very grown up.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I had one.
So I didn't, and I remember renting my first CDs. Flipping it is a vintage memory, for the library, because I was like, I didn't have CDs. My earliest cassettes, earliest album was all on cassette. Same Oasis.
All
the singles were Oasis.
Yeah.
Did I have the Manics? No, but I had the Prodigy singles. I remember.
Yeah.
I had all the bargain bucket at Woolworths. My earliest musical education was Woolworths. I didn't have an Al Price. I was in suburban North London. So I didn't have Al Price or any of that jazz.
Do you know what? That bargain bucket in Woolworths. Yeah. Do you know what? I tell you what I brought in the bargain bucket, and I was gonna get it, and I thought
probably my album, yeah.
Love is the Law by the Seahorses. The single.
Of what?
Love is the Law by the Seahorses.
Wow.
Yeah. That was in the bargain bucket in Woolworths. The single to incredible. That's a mega song.
I mean, without admitting to too many or any crimes here, live on air, I used to swap around the stickers as well on Woolworths. Me and my mates were well up to that. So you'd swap around I did it with games. I did it with bloody whatever PlayStation games or I had then. But yeah, that was a bit harder. But I used to do it certainly with cassettes. I know I'm not the only one.
You'll have the old Bill knocking on your door in a minute.
Yeah. I did it with quite a few albums actually,
Yeah.
But I remember, it is quite lovely. That's the thing. I know you could do it on CD, but that's pirating. Another petty crime. Pirating. My first two Oasis albums, I didn't buy them.
Yeah.
Because my older brother is 11 years older. Actually, to the day, is a weird piece of trivia. He's exactly the same age as Liam Gallagher.
Right, so
he's 50 next week.
Yeah.
On the 6th, he's like the 12th of September, I think. 72.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, and my oldest brother is Noel's age, actually. I'm 38, then you got 40, and then you got 50, and then you got 54. So they're like the
Yeah,
younger
yeah,
babies.
yeah.
But my middle brother, he was a bit more into acid house and techno, but Oasis was unavoidable, and he loved them as well. But he
Yeah.
got them. My oldest brother was a bit more like me. He loved the Smiths, and he liked indie music, and he liked the Cure and all this kind of stuff. So a lot of
Yeah.
my musical stuff seemed to seep down from him. And he liked REM. That was a big one for me. REM and the
Yeah.
Smiths, he really liked. The middle brother was a bit more into acid house and that kind of thing, which was never my cup of tea at all. I like it. That's still not really. I prefer electronica music to that kind of stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, mood music. Oh, it's all mood music. But yeah, my middle brother anyway, he was at Bristol Uni, and I remember he sent me a letter, and he was like, "Oh, you should check out this band." And it was the first album of Oasis that he'd recorded on cassette. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
needed another cassette player, you know. It's amazing,
Yeah.
really.
It is mad, isn't it? And you know what, Ali? I think this is the first chat I've had about cassettes, right?
Yeah.
Because it's always been about vinyl, and CDs, yeah.
Yeah.
But I've never really talked about cassettes, I don't think.
Well,
But
they're great. They looked great. I mean, I was always losing them as well. I mean, they were quite
yeah,
hundreds of them, but in the great scheme of things, they were quite compact. You know, I guess.
yeah,
I remember my first CD. Cool. Yeah, I do remember my first CD. It was OK Computer by Radiohead. That was the first. It was quite apt in a weird way. It suited being on CD. I can't explain it, you know. Oh, because it had a slightly bigger booklet, and you had these weird images inside. And so
yeah,
I wasn't very old then. I was probably what, the 13,
yeah,
14, 14 I would have been.
yeah. I
So it was
love,
like, wow.
I love like when the collection first started, right,
Yeah.
for the albums that we were getting. I mean,
Yeah.
oh, mate, you know
But it
what?
meant so much. Even my oldest brother was the
Totally.
final generation officially, you know, and that was when it was dissipating. But sorry, I don't know if it was the same for you, but it felt like you were part of the band. I remember you were buying I remember I felt like a member of Oasis when I was a kid, and I bought their cassette. I felt like a member of bloody The Strokes when I bought This Is It on CD. I was only about 16
Yeah.
then, you know, going back some
Yeah.
time.
I mean, I think the Strokes' first album, me and my friends have always said, that's never mind the bollocks. That's
Yeah, that's a great.
that's the one. That's the one album that will live with us the lifetime.
Yeah, me
You
too.
know.
Funny enough, I like the Strokes' last album. I always assumed that they were my or our kind of age. They're a little bit older, actually. They'd be quite well in their 40s, early 40s, but they were so young as well. So when I was 18, they would have been 16. I think the youngest member is Nick Valancy, and I
Yeah.
think he's 41. So I'm 38.
Yeah.
So that would make sense. But they were so young. They were like 18, 19 years old, the Strokes.
I mean, we can talk about this band, Dolly, because I think they play a huge part in both our lives.
Yeah, funny enough, I've never really
right
been
from the
into,
beginning.
I've never really been into. Yeah, I like a couple of the tracks actually, maybe 3 or 4, which is not bad going. You know, if anyone said they like 3 or 4 of my tracks, I'd be well chuffed. But I've never really
Yeah.
been to the Arctic Monkeys until about just pre-pandemic. I saw Alex Turner on an interview, and I mean, Christ, everything he was talking about, exactly what we've talked about. He loved Oasis, because I think he's a year younger than me. So he loved Oasis. He did the whole thing. The Strokes were a seminal band for him, you see.
Yeah.
I felt like, oh, he's from a as you get older, you think, oh, I'm from that generation, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
Same generation. And I liked him a lot more.
Yeah. I mean,
guess.
you know what? You know, it's a great time period for, you know, Julian and the Strokes and all of that, right?
Yeah.
And for Alex, I mean, I don't know if you've seen my last video of me talking to Nick about Be Here Now, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. But, you know, we talk about Alex and, you know, here we are talking about the Strokes, but we're so lucky to be in the time period, Ali, to have these people.
Have it in our lifetime that we were old enough to get into the mindset. It was like finding some type of religion, really. You know, get into the mindset, feel like you remember the band, start trying to dress like Liam Gallagher when I was about 12 years old. Oh, I mean, it was all encompassing. You know, it was the whole thing. And then with the Strokes, you know, and it's like a growing up, a coming of age movie, you know, because it was such a simple, easy, childlike way of life. Your mates would be like, "Oh, your leather jacket looks like bloody Julian Casablancas," or you know, and it was the same a little bit with the Libertines. He was still young then. I was only 19, 18.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
Libertines were first
yeah.
knocking around, and it would be like that, you know. Oh, you know, everyone wanted a pair of brogues like Pete Doherty.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
stupid,
yeah.
really.
And the
Like Blue
military
Suede Shoes and
jackets.
Elvis, people wanted, I guess, or Beatles.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know,
And
it's
then
they were quite. There is stuff like that now, but there's so many demographics that it has lost romance when there's so many different types of. Because I guess if you spoke to an 18-year-old, they'd be so passionate about bloody a demographic of cosplay or a certain genre of music that we might not have ever even fucking heard of, probably. And
yeah,
that's social media driven, and it isn't as romantic because I don't want to be I turn into that grumpy old man, but it isn't as romantic because it's all controlled by it always was always by big labels, but it's all controlled by social media, you know, Facebook and
yeah,
Instagram
yeah,
buy up anything that's considered counterculture, you know. And in
yeah.
England counterculture is very, very important. That's in pop culture. You ask bloody Jarvis Cocker or people that are like lecturers on pop culture in England, you know.
Yeah,
It is. I love it as well. I've grown up on what I call pop culture. You know, from the
yeah,
90s, the early 2000s to up to
yeah,
about 2010. There was that underlying thing of and it's nice. It's quite sweet when it's English. You know, we look up to the Americans and we beg, borrow, and steal from the Yanks and from whatever. But it's quite sweet when it's done in the English way because we're quite weird and we're very creative. Us Englanders, you know.
absolutely. Yeah,
You'd never get another. You wouldn't get the clash. You wouldn't get that contrast of aggression and sentimentality and poetry and melody. That all from the Beatles to the flipping the Clash to Radiohead to the
Stones who,
Libertines, or if
you
to
know,
talk about every single one of those kind of
yeah,
101 amazing bands that we've produced, 1,001, but you know, 101 that
yeah,
are considered the top bands ever.
yeah. I mean, you know, there's a few
They
things
all
that have
have
to
that element. It's a very English thing. It's hard to replicate.
definitely, definitely. I mean, there's a few things that I have to talk to you about, right? And
Yeah.
that is obviously, you know, when we talk about that time period and them characters, be it them ages, Ollie,
Yeah.
we didn't have like Facebook. I'm talking like early 20s, right? For me, like
I didn't have a
1920.
mobile until I was about 28.
Well, yeah, yeah, exactly.
I
But
didn't.
we had the NME and we had like
Yeah.
Q magazine and we
Yeah, they were
would watch like
amazing.
we'd watch like MTV2 and we had people on the radio like John Peel and then Zayn, you know, and it was around to get people
Actually,
sucked
I'm
in.
sorry. I retract the previous. John Peel was amazing. The Enemy in Q magazine was shite, but they were still, in the great scheme of things, it was still so important to when you were a teenager. They were shit. They used to talk about absolute bullshit. You know,
Yeah, I
you know,
know.
they were
But
preempting, you know, all of that Kate Moss and Pete Doherty stuff. You know, it was just all kind of media fodder. But they tell you about new bands, and that was
they
the
did.
important bit.
They did.
New
They did.
songs and new
Yeah, yeah.
all this kind of stuff.
And not only that,
In
you
that
know,
respect, they were very important.
there was there was always something new, obviously, that they would tell you about. You had the
Yeah.
back pages where obviously where all the gigs were going on and this, that, and the
Yeah.
other. Yeah.
And they made or broke bands. Actually, the
Yeah.
Libertines was a famous example of that. The one with the cover with them and the Union Jack, that was a pivotal. I mean, Carl Barrett, who's my fucking neighbour, by the way, he lives literally at the end of my street. He lives on the Albion Road. Not
Right.
Sullivan where I live, but,
Yeah.
but somewhere near the Albion Road.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's very lovely around here. Don't get me started. It's like that show years ago, Stella Street. There's lots of quite famous musicians that live in the area, but he's one.
Oh
And
yeah. Who else you
he,
got? Who else you got round? Yeah.
yeah, he's all right. Seems quite a nice person.
Yeah.
He said once on some interview that one interview with the Enemy was like a day in the life with the Libertines, and they were what fucking wild. Certainly in that 24 hours they spent, and he said we were just on point. We looked great. We had very interesting things to say that were still condensed into this kind of thing, to shorten it for magazine. And the cover looked great. And he said within the space of a week, everyone had seemed to have heard of us. That's how important the enemy was, you see. That's what I mean by youth culture. Now the enemy doesn't exist. Now it will be, how do kids find bands? I mean, it's not nothing to do with me. I don't know how kids find me. But probably online, I guess. It's just not as romantic, you see.
But this is...
Who needs romance, though?
for me I mean, when we met each other and when we started talking to each other, this didn't even...
we found each other online
somehow. We did.
I don't remember how, but yeah.
But this didn't even exist, right? When me and Susanna come to see you in London, right?
Yeah.
We went to see Dylan and Neil Young, saw you.
That's right, yeah.
Fucking lockdown happened and all of that, and lo and behold, I come up with the idea of Simon's Universe of Music.
Yeah, right? It's great. Well done, mate, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much.
Congratulations. Yeah, it's a good show.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, you need more people need to have that genuine passion. I think you're doing what I'm trying to do, or have done a bit in music. It's just like, you think, you know what, sod it, because I'm not chasing a record deal anymore. I'm writing freely, and I write for me. And you think that actually I'm going to release my own music. It would be lovely to have a manager, for Christ, to help out. Someone to make me a cup of tea even would be nice.
Yeah. I was going to ask you that. To be honest, have you got a manager?
No, well, me. I've got a manager that online I pretend is my manager, called Howard Conk. Because I'm not bad. I mean, without being cocky, a manager would have to fucking work harder than me, basically. Honestly.
Yeah.
There's one guy who's very nice, who co-managed. Do you know what? I'm going to say it. I don't care if you use this or not. He's an alcoholic, basically, and he offered to manage me twice, and he was the co-manager of the Manic Street Preachers. However, he has offered me 3 times, actually, to be my manager, but he's drunk, so he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about when he offers me. And now he's back to a day job. But that was one that could have really helped out. And he was giving me some weird bits of advice that actually, you should... My only advice to younger musicians, including me, it's important to remember all the advice that people give you. I spoke to someone recently. These managers, however much experience you have to do what's from the heart, and screw your noddle on and screw your head on, because there's so many. You take the advice with a pinch of salt. I always think. I try to, and you think, well, do you know what? I've tried that in the past and it hasn't worked. It might work in a different demographic. But I spoke to a guy who works for, just out and about, and he's a really nice guy, for London's BBC Unsigned. Now, I've just been played on BBC Essex, completely separately to this. He didn't pull any strings. I don't think they can. And he was saying, his advice, he's about our age, and he was saying, his advice to young bands is, don't spend your time to endless hours on coming up with a press pack. He said, and there were certain things, and spending so much money on demos and all this kind of stuff, or recording. If you could record to the best of your abilities, and it's a good song, like going back to what I was saying about songwriting, you've done your part. It's up to the label to chase, put yourself out there. You've done your part as well. What they're looking for is someone that creates a buzz in live gigs, the same as it always was. Really, it's just a different playing field, really. The same that, and there'll be people listening to me now saying, oh, well, what does he know? He hasn't got a record deal and he doesn't have a manager. But little bits of advice. I know that it's just, one of those things. I know it's decent advice, I think. Take it or not, but I agree with this guy. I don't think you do need a press back. I think you just need good tunes. And for all of these guys that have got a lot of following online but still don't have a record deal, I've seen it happen, clear as mud, clear as day. Sorry. In recent times, in the last few years, held up by the pandemic, but bands do get record deals still from playing a venue. There are A&R people. There's treble the amount that there was probably 10 years ago, even now. That sign bands that haven't got a huge following, in a certain area, but they've brought a good crowd, they've created a buzz, and they've got good tunes,
So, and I mean, okay, this is quite something to say with the subject that you're talking about.
Anyway, I'll keep trying as well, whatever.
But then the city that you're living in, Ali, I mean, you
live in congested.
You live in the capital, you know.
I know.
And
well, this is the thing as well. There's a lot of people want to make a fast buck, you know, and advising young bands, let's say if they're from great musical cities like Manchester, Birmingham, Nottingham, Midlands is fucking phenomenal for music in England. An example where you're from yourself, and I've just played in Nottingham twice at Rough Trade, you know, and it's like, and Nottingham's like, as a southerner, you forget that Nottingham's like Covent Garden. Everyone knows each other, Nottingham. So there's a proper scene. Any band that is good and gets a crowd, there's a scene instantly for that band. They come down to London and they think, oh, let's all move to London. And that scene that they're in dissipates. They all get fed up. They split up as a band, you know, because they haven't got a record deal. They feel like failures. When actually, you know, sticking to your guns. I've got a cult following in Camden, which for me is phenomenal. I didn't think that would happen. But you know, I'm quite happy to play around Camden, play at the odd gig, put on my own gig. Sorry, that's another subject matter. But start putting on my own gigs with bands that I actually want to play with as well.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you something. Like, obviously, where I'm living now, okay, I'm in the north. Yeah,
you're in the north again, aren't you? Yeah,
I'm in the north.
Leicester, aren't you?
Well, I was born in Lincoln. Yeah. Then I moved to Norwich, and I moved down to Kent.
Norwich, sorry, yeah.
And then Bromsgrove, obviously South Birmingham, then up to Newcastle. But
South Birmingham was the Midlands. Norwich is slightly more northerly, isn't it?
East. Like
no, sorry, it's easterly, isn't it? Yeah. East Midlands, yeah.
So where I live now, okay, is a bit of a sleeping giant because certainly got a music scene up here. Yeah. You got guys like Sam Fender that's just about to sell tickets for St James's Park. And obviously everyone's talking about him. But there seems to be a music scene and people like him, you know, hitting the big time. But I think there's more to come, you know.
There's an old story. I mean, things don't change that much. I know we've been proper vintage heads tonight, but there's an old story with Ed O'Brien, who's a lead guitarist, one of the guitarists, in Radiohead.
Yeah.
I've watched endless YouTube videos, and one of these interviews, he's at the Royal College of Music, of course he is, but giving a little chat. And one of the kids, the student studying, asked him such a great question. He said, what do you think differentiated you, whatever, it's not a word, but from other bands? You know, what do you think was the difference from other bands? And he said, do you know what? The main bands, he said, he was very modest about it, because they are quite modest dudes, you know. And he said, having a van. He said, we had the ability he said, because all the other bands in Oxford would be like, you know, we would play this club on a Friday night, and they play, and they were called then they play, they were called on a Friday, Radiohead. Then they were called the Walls of Jericho briefly, because they played on a Friday at the Walls of Jericho pub, just pre-Radiohead. And anyway, trying to link all these stories together. There's another link actually to my new album title is a wink to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Nice.
Beginner's Guide to Dystopia. And Radiohead's name comes from that. There's a character called Radiohead. But sorry, it's completely trivial. I don't know how I remember that. Anyway, Ed O'Brien said, having a van, he said, because all of their mates were dudes the same age in the Oxford scene of that time, whenever it was, late 80s, early 90s, would say, oh yeah, where are you playing? We're playing such and such. And Tom York could be like, oh yeah, we're playing in London. They'd be like, what? And he said, yeah, we've got a van. We're playing in London. So they gave them mobility without a manager. They could go and earn a bit of money, get experience, play terrible gigs or sometimes amazing, but it sounds terrible, play up and down the country and learn their craft. And he said, so the four bands that were four of the biggest bands of the 90s, i.e. them, let's say, top of the tree, sales-wise, probably Radiohead. The other ones were Cooler Shaker, I think were from Oxford. Supergrass certainly were.
Yeah.
One other that were quite famous as well. I can't remember.
Right.
And it was Ride. And they were the four bands that would be on every single week, would be gigging and gigging. It's a bit like in London, Suede. My mate Paul Tippler said you'd see Suede on the bill everywhere. Or Blur. You see Blur or Suede on the bill absolutely everywhere. Everywhere you went, from the Dublin Castle to flipping, Norwich. You'd see a Blur or someone on this. They play hundreds of gigs, those dudes. It's the same with Radiohead. You know, I've played a lot of gigs. You learn your craft, but I think you're right. London is oversaturated, but they'd cornered, and they got a record deal in Oxford. To be fair, Radiohead.
Yeah.
I think all of those bands did. I don't know, but certainly Radiohead did. Because they all went to Oxford Uni. Took the band went on hiatus, and the bass player Colin Greenwood got them a record deal because he said he knew that the CEO or something of Parlophone used to come into HMV or Tower Records where he was working, and he gave him a demo and he said, you should listen to us. We're called On a Friday. Came to see them, and he said there was almost like Spinal Tap. I think this is the story. He said it was hilarious. Tom York was screaming at the audience. The sound, one of the sound systems blew up. He said they were quite comical. Tom York had this kind of massive hair, like a blonde mullet, and he said there was something about them. He thought that's a proper, it's a proper like rock band, completely different. They went through so many different, phases because they've been around for so fucking long. They've been around like 35 years. You do go for. I've been through quite a few from. I might have always looked dressed similarly. But my music's gone through, and even in the last 5 years with these albums.
Do you know anyone like in London at the minute that you've seen on the scene that's playing that you think, fuck, they're gonna make it, or they're pretty good?
And it's an unusual one. He's a guy called, I've got to mention him because and I'm going to tag him in this because I'm going to mention him. He's a guy called Joey Bedlam.
Right.
And, I don't know how to describe him. He's like punk, hip hop, grime, all melted into one. He's got the most phenomenal voice singing. And it's funny. It's always a typical musician thing. You never listen to. I would listen to someone like him at home. You don't always listen to your genre of music. But he's quite a big fan of mine, it seems. He's very lovely and very supportive of my music. He must have been to about 12 of my gigs over the last few years, whatever.
Yeah.
Certainly quite post-pandemic. And he's the coolest guy as well. He's a Londoner. He's very, very cool. I'll send you a link to him.
Yeah.
Try and get him on the show as well.
Right,
He's a diamond geezer, but he's very musically talented. He's got great ideas. He's got a phenomenal voice. So he'd be my person I'd choose for someone different, someone cool as well that younger kids can look up to. So Joey Bedlam.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't know. He's a hip hop guy. I know it's not the genre that you and I might be associated to or listen, but I quite like that. And he's always front of the stage. Going nuts for us, and he loves it. There's a couple of songs I know he really likes of ours, but he's got real soul, and he's just a music lover, and it's compliment to me because I think he just likes elements of my writing. I think he said he came to see us. I mean, actually, it's the best type of person you could ever meet, really, because we're friends. Oh, we're friends really through music. We don't really hang out. It's lovely. It's an admiration of our genres. I think, to be honest, I don't know that much about him, but I know he's a lovely. It seems like a lovely bloke. We don't hang out that much, but there's a feeling that I feel like I know him somehow. There's a connection between us. He's always front of stage. There's always photos of him going absolutely nuts, drawing people in. He's quite a force of nature, but I think he saw us at the Good Mixer pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
And there was one song, and he said he was humming it on the way home, and it really got to him. And I mean, I know that feeling. It's lovely when that happens. Like anyone else in London, I'm as moody as anyone else. You stand staring at your pint, watching a band as if you're going to a hanging.
And who did you say lives by you now? You said you got quite a lot of famous people living by you.
Well, believe it or not, I've got a guy called John Power. John Power, and he was an original member of the Lars and Cast.
I know him.
From Liverpool will kill me if I don't pronounce it properly. Cast.
Yeah.
And he's directly my neighbour, so he lives across the street.
Fucking hell.
I've got Carl Barrett at the end of the road. I've got Giles Peterson, the DJ, who moved in about 3 months ago over the road. I've got Bobby Gillespie about 4 streets away.
Right.
I've got Nigel Goldrich, produced all the Radiohead albums. No one would know who he is, apart from maybe you and I. He's very lovely and very attractive ladies as well. Very smiley guy. Why would he be? He's a very successful career. He lives apparently a couple of streets away. A neighbour was telling me about Giles Peterson. So quite an array of. Oh, and there's Thurston Moore from Sonic Youth. He doesn't live locally, but he's in Stoke Newington.
Right.
Quite an array of stars, literally down this street, but only maybe you and I and festival goers would recognise, or
Yeah,
people from
yeah,
a
yeah.
certain period. The guy, it's like John Power. He doesn't look, he's still got curly hair, but you wouldn't instantly say, "Oh, that's the bloke from the Lars" or Cass.
Right. Because are you still living in Camden?
No, I moved. I bought my first ever place, so I'm in Stoke Newington. So I
Right.
was in
Okay.
Camden for 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you must be it must be a pretty nice area. If you've got all them people living by you, you must be
Yeah.
in a pretty, good place.
Well, I didn't realise that. I just thought, because you know what it's like when you buy a place, if you haven't bought a place yet, it's like
Yeah.
saying about romantic things. It's like going on for all homeowners. It's like
Yeah.
going on a blind date, falling in love with that person, making a commitment to that person, working your ass off with the idea that you're going to spend the rest of your life with that person. You've only seen them once, you know.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
might have a little Zoom tour. I think they gave me a little WhatsApp video of the place, and I love
Yeah.
it. I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life.
Yeah, that's good. Do you think you'll always live in London, Ollie?
Well, I had a bit of money to acquire a flat in the first place. I won't bore you with the details, just and how I got the money as well. I won't bore you with that. But I think my mum's words at the time were just don't f off to France and try and become live like a poet there, very bohemian lifestyle, which
Yeah.
is good advice. She knows me too well, But uh, it's great. It's really lovely here, to be honest. I feel so really settled.
Yeah, because with me, I love London.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
London
sorry. To answer
place.
your question, yeah, who knows? Actually, to answer your question, who knows? Because it's my place, and as long as I'm paying off the mortgage, I guess I could always rent it out. Saying about romantic things, if I met someone that I fell for, and she lived in bloody Timbuktu, you never know. You never know what the future holds. I didn't know that I'd get a flat pre-pandemic, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky. So you never ever know. You were saying you've moved a few times. I mean, I lived in Paris for 2 years, about
Yeah.
18 months, best part of 2 years. I lived in New York when I was very young for a year,
Right.
18 at the time. Yeah, so you never know what life holds. But I'm a lot more. You become a bit more set in your ways. You never know, but you know a bit more as you in your past your mid-30s. You say, well, that's I mean, by all means, I have a mortgage now. Officially, I'll be living here till I'm 64, which is all
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
And
I mean, are you still?
I'll be quite happy. I'll be quite
Well,
happy
yeah.
to do
Are
that,
you
really.
are you still working at the same place?
Still working at the same place.
Yeah.
Still in a hat place, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
my
yeah.
day job.
The one I got off you, I still wear every single day.
Hey, great. Yeah, nice one, man. It was cool. It was a nice
Yeah.
one. I thought it was a cool one, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, with London, it's just well, I can only say it's because that's where my family's from.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
My mum and my grandmother and all of that. It's just
Oh, yeah,
it
that's
plays
right. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot that. Yeah, yeah.
it plays a huge, huge, huge real part in my heart, and I just think
Yeah,
there's
it's
there's
funny that,
magic
isn't
in
it?
that city. There's magic in that city for
Again, I
me.
think as you get a bit, not that I'd consider living there, but I don't know. Yeah, to say you don't know, but my mum's lot were all from Glasgow, all from
Right.
and Ayrshire. And as I'm
Yeah.
getting older, I feel more of a connection. She used to be like, "Oh well, shut up, yeah, I don't care," or whatever. I like that band Travis very much when I was a kid. Actually, yeah,
Right.
that was about as close as to my roots as I've ever got. They're all Glaswegian,
Yeah.
and again, it's the time of when they came out, but I still love them to this day. When you love people at that age, I was 15, 16, you love them forever, right? But I went to
Yeah.
see them 3 times, and I've been to see them this year, actually,
All
at the
right.
Roundhouse. Yeah, they were doing. It was great, yeah.
Were they good?
It was a 20-year anniversary of the Invisible Band, which I would have been,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then the Man Who, I was 16, so it was like, mind blowing for
Yeah.
me. But love them. But yeah, they were, I don't feel much of a connection to. I've been to Glasgow a few times.
Yeah.
Much of a connection to there, but sorry, I do know I'm a bit older. It's like, oh wow, I've got roots there, I've got family there, I've had family there, and essentially I'm a Londoner. That's where I've grown up. But there
Yeah.
is a kind of a some Gaelic blood somewhere, and and it's. But I saw this show about. I'm not going to say because you'll laugh. It's just ridiculous. I haven't been very well the last few days. I've been blitzing and binging 4OD because I don't have Netflix, so it's as good as to me. Whatever, Netflix repeats stuff anyway. 4OD is incredible, to be honest. What's going on about them? But fucking hell, you can watch every episode of fucking Cheers if you want to. Every single thing that's ever been on Channel 4.
I know.
Cheers to Denzel. I can't believe that.
But you know what? I can't remember who So when I've done the past interview talking about obviously the entertainment business and the music business, obviously television has given the music business a bit of a kick in the nuts, because when you think of, when you say you can watch this, you can watch that, everything's on TV, I pay for Sky. And you get Netflix and Disney, so you got all this entertainment. Why the fuck do you want to go out the house and go and see a gig 20 minutes down the road, but it's going to cost you an arm and a leg? This day and age now, where you can stay in and watch fucking everything on TV. It's a bit of a shit situation for the music business.
I agree.
But if there was more programs on music on TV, maybe that would help get people, out the door,
And no musicians are making any money. There's a younger generation coming through, and they might look at me, and if they know, I'm just quite happy to tell them, I get paid for gigs. I don't play a gig unless my band gets fucking paid. And that's because I've played enough for free. You'll get good bands, and why should you play for free? You should get paid at every gig. You're not chasing it's not all about just chasing record deals, but labels would have probably more respect for you anyway, and A&R people, if they think you're professional and you're doing it as partly as a living, at least partly. But all of this stuff, this new modus operandi of doing things, of bands don't get paid, it's all the fat cats making all this money once again. Which is devastating for young musicians, because if there's no resource, it's like sports. You can say that about anything now. Now that the women's England teams won, it's great for women's football, it's great for sports, great for advertising. But the people who are going to make the most money out of that are fucking Nike and all these assholes. That's not going to seep down as much money as it should. No, it's all sponsoring to young youth, whatever, women's teams, whatever, talent scouting.
Absolutely.
This girl came up to me. She said in a non-creepy way after the single launch. She said, "I don't want to sound creepy, but I've followed your recent career for the last 7 years. I'm a big fan of music. I think that you'd fit in more. You kind of done with Camden." And I was like, "Oh well, I'm always playing Camden." But she said, "Right, you should branch out to South London, because that is true. Without going too much into it, we are quite a weird, artsy little outfit. I do lots of different kinds of music, and it is a bit artsy as well, which I guess makes sense to me. So it's more of an artsy scene. It's not just a rock thing. We are a rock band at heart. I love that, but we branched into lots of different things. But it's that thing, it's a very modern thing as well, of believing you've made, maybe it's not so modern, this is, humans don't change that much, it's just the industry's changed, of believing you've made it before you have, and singing your praise. That's nothing new. Everyone thinks that they're off, abroad with a band, they're winning Brit Awards, they're playing people all of a sudden think they're flipping what do you call them? One of those Irish boys that are really good.
Like One Direction or something.
No, the indie vibe. I've seen them a couple of times.
Shit.
Fontaine, DC Fontaines.
Right.
Everyone thinks that they're them all of a sudden. They are a good example of someone that's doing very, very well. Have a record deal. They have a third successful album. They sell out tours. They will sell out stadiums. Probably give it another couple of years. They sell out large venues. They're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. They've got a large following in America. That's a very, very, that's a real rarity. Ed Sheeran sold out Wembley 4 days on the trot. And the money that he makes, that there's made for Sony, that seeps down in theory to A&R people to try and find new bands. It works it's like a big football team. It's like any big business. the top of the tree will make that makes the money, if they're lucky, filters down, to water the rest of the branches.
I mean, what do you think about people like Ed and that?
Oh, I don't think. I don't. Maybe it's an age thing, but I seem to have skipped. Ed Sheeran to me is like flipping Harry Potter. I don't know. When he was first knocking about, I was a bit too old to get into him. I wouldn't have liked him even when I was a kid.
No,
I know. I couldn't. If you asked me to, people go on about what a great songwriter he is, and I couldn't hum you or name you one of his songs. So
it's not for me, I'm afraid. It's not for me.
Fits in with that modern idealism that isn't real, really. Oh, I can do that because he looks like the guy from next door.
Yeah.
I guess people think that, oh, he's the guy from next door. But then the Beatles were like boys from next door. That's how they would have been described. But they in my mind, they look like fucking rock stars. They all look really cool.
Yeah.
So
what do you think about Harry Styles?
He's all right.
He is.
But that's
you know what?
You know
what? You know what?
Because
I actually think I like him.
Yeah, I like bits of him. At least he's trying to do something different, and he recorded where, bloody, what do you call it? They did Sledgehammer.
Right.
That guy. He recorded his album where he did it. One of Genesis, ex-member of Genesis. Whatever his, I can't remember his bloody name now. But he's all right. Harry Styles.
Peter Gabriel.
He's got the package.
Peter Gabriel.
He looks great. He's a great live performer. He can handle himself in front of huge crowds. It's not just all online. That's inspiring for younger people as well. They're like, I want to sell to big stadiums. If that's the pinnacle, if the pinnacle of, because we're in that weird stage in popular culture and in music and in anything, where people might try and say you get thousands of views on your channel, millions. A young person will try and emulate you without putting in the legwork, and they think, well, I'll be a social media star. That's fair enough, but you need. It's like saying, I'm doing what I do. I've been writing since I was 15 years old. I've got a bit of a career now that's restarted up over the last 7 years, let's say. It takes a lot of work. It's my every second thought. I'm quite professional about how I go about my stuff. I care very much about those who are involved. Really, and I must say this: the Oliver Shaw Experience, which is the name of the band, it's quite nice for me, I guess. But it's as close as I'll ever get to my earliest influences, which were the Velvet Underground or the Gorillaz. It's basically, I'm the songwriter. And all of these artists and musicians and weird and wonderful and lovely people and talented musicians, talented in all of their different fields, even to the guy that designs my website, help out and are all part of the Oliver Shaw Experience, really. It's a big conglomerate of, it's like a very happy little band of about nigh on 20 members. So that for me is lovely. It's a band, but it's quite a large band of all lovely people. And we're all kind of in contact, or I'm pestering them the whole time, certainly. So that element of it is really, really nice. Because I've done the rock band stuff, and I think if you're a musician, male or female, you should do, because you learn your craft. You learn how you conduct yourself, even if you're a writer, if you're a drummer, if you're a bass player, whatever, amongst other people and your mates. You know how to deal with things like cabin fever when you're on tour. But we're in that weird stage, I was going to say, where I think nature will find a way and we'll sort ourselves out. But it's worth being aware of. You've got to play live. You've got to play gigs where people laugh at you. Gigs where you feel like a member of Queen, like you've made it. Gigs where or Zeppelin. Gigs where where there's 2 people. Gigs where there's 100 people. Gigs where there's 1,000 people. You've got to play every type of gig that you can. Going back to that Radiohead thing of they had a band. Play everywhere that you can. Not that I have, but I haven't been all over England, but in the last 18 years of gigging properly, been quite far and wide, and France and all this kind of stuff, and it gives you it laments you, or as the thing you're aspiring to be. And I think that's been confused these days a little bit, of people just think, I could be an instant chef, I could be an instant musician because I've seen enough YouTube videos, I know what I'm doing. And it's confused because the selling point is the aspiration. The aspiration is the thing that we need, but it's the learning it That's the difficult side, and people don't want to. People want the aspiration, and they think that's good enough. Oh, I woke up this morning and I decided to be a chef. So by this time next year, I'll be running a catering company. I'll be very successful. It doesn't work like that, you know.
No way. No
same
way.
with me, but it's the same with what I do. It's nice if I inspire the aspirational side. If I inspire someone to pick up a guitar, that is the job that I want to do. And that's as an older dude now, as a musician, you know. Well, I'm still youngish. I'm not fucking retiring, but you know, it's older than lots of dudes knocking around in you know, come up and coming talent. If I can inspire someone to, when I have a little bit actually, these random people that message me, it's lovely. It kind of what is as equally what keeps me going. I've got some super fans who are very young, they're like 18 years old, and it's like I remember what it felt like to be that. And they asked me not advice on writing songs because I couldn't give any, but it's just like, you know.
But you know what? I think
use your guitar well enough, you know, get okay on that and start writing. And if you've got a good ear for melody.
But you know what? I think with you saying that, Ali, you have so much respect for you saying that people actually really like, you know what? That's fucking cool, because that's all it is. Well, and whatever it is,
I think it's important to be aware of it at least.
Yeah.
At the moment, especially at the moment, because a lot of things, the country's gone a bit crazy. Everyone's gone a bit mad.
We've got a new prime minister today.
Your mad Aunt Nora's got a bit madder than she was.
Yeah.
Prime minister. You know what I mean? And it's like,
that's it.
I think it's which is good for, as far as saying about counterculture. I think that I think nature will find a way in that. I think English people are good at that. I think we'll say, do you know what, sod all this online stuff, even if it plays a big part in it. But going to live shows, playing because like yourself, you know, you're a trained chef. I wouldn't say I'm a trained musician, but I'm a music fan. Then I'm a musician. So I think of it from going to a gigs, buying records, downloading, listening on Spotify, whatever, eating music every day. I have to feed off of it like a vampire. I need music all the time. And I think about that more than I do with the writing side. That's there as well. But I kind of I do think about writing a lot as well, but that becomes easier. I used to only think about writing, but you realize how important other people's music is to you. You know, however insular or introverted music writing is, however many hours you spend at it on your own with your mates, like Billy No Mates, it's all of the other stuff that's all encompassing as well. They're very important elements, you see. You know,
I can only go by who my favourite singer-songwriter is of all time. And for every episode and every person that I talk to within music, and the way that obviously, you know, you totally idolize someone and what he does all the time and the way that he lives his life and what he's created, you know, he says he writes and he plays every day. Well, he plays every day or whatever. But with Nolly G, you know, I just think, you know, it's something that I really admire with people.
Well, for all the facade, because I like Noel Gallagher as well, but all the facade came after somewhere between the first album and the first album becoming phenomenally successful. And that comes with everyone. If you listen to Paul McCartney on interviews for the last 60 years, probably, there's always an element of facade. And even however modest and you know, thankfully, I always think the northern side of things gives an element of modesty and humanity.
Yeah.
Essentially, both of those two men, even the Tom Yorks and people of this world that are like considered, darlings of the Guardian, Damon Albarn. All of those dudes are very good songwriters, and they all write from the heart, and they write like they did originally. Actually, it's Noel Gallagher comment about Paul McCartney. He said he's 80 years old. He still writes a song thinking this could be my best song. That's what keeps you going. It's what keeps me going, actually, for little or no money from music. That's what keeps me going. I think, you know what?
Of course.
Quite self-involved, but I really want to keep writing good songs, really.